All right, here we are after another Giants game and another loss, 9 in a row. That's great. Hey, let's make it 11 in a row, right? So we can get the number one pick. I'm not even going to really talk about the game too much because at this point, I don't even know if the Giants are trying to lose on purpose to keep that number one pick so they can trade it away and help build the future. So it's hard to even really evaluate like what they're doing on the field totally because players are checked out. It's an interim head coach, so he wasn't even voluntarily picked to be the coach. And who knows, they might be tanking. But the thing I did want to talk about is what's going on with Jackson Dart because he has not looked the same since the concussion, and whether it is it from the concussion, is it the fact that Dable's not there anymore, is it defenses have caught up to him, is it that they're trying to protect him so they're not letting him be him, is it all of the above, right? Now I've heard some things about um, you gotta develop the quarterback, right? And that's what the rest of this season should be. And then I've heard some things where you got to protect the quarterback, right? And these two things kind of are at odds because how do you develop your quarterback and let him be out there and do what he does, but also protect him? Like you kind of can't do that. Now, I'm of the thought process of he should be out there, Dart, especially in a lost season. There's nothing to watch. And people are, oh, yeah, but he could get hurt. Okay, you get hurt. He get hurt not even playing a game. He can get hurt in practice. He can get hurt in his own life. You know, um, but he needs the reps. Now, what I don't understand is why the Giants can't figure out, and maybe this isn't exclusive to the Giants, but why they can't figure out how to help Dark kind of keep his game, but be safer about it. You know, and I do think some of his game does need to change because I know there's the popular opinion of, well, you got to keep the skill set that got you here, right? If being a little reckless with the ball and trying to be a big playmaker and running people over on the defense is what got him to the NFL, then he should keep doing it because that's his game. And to be fair to those people, uh, he came out doing that since week 4 and basically took the NFL over. He was going to win Rookie of the Year potentially, and he had such an aura about him, and everybody's like the Giants got their future quarterback. But here's the thing: you keep letting him play like that, and what happens if next year he plays like that? The Giants go 5-0, and then he breaks his leg, and now he's out for the rest of the season and the Giants, win like 3 more games or 2 more games, so they end up going like 7-10. How are we gonna feel about that? You know. Also, the other thing to remember is you can't play like that forever. We're kind of starting to see it with Lamar Jackson. Look at what happened with Russell Wilson once he couldn't run anymore and do those types of things. So what's gonna happen to Dart if he's playing great and then he hits 29, 30 years old? He can't play like that anymore. And he was never a throw it from the pocket passer, and now he's no good, right? So you do have to change his game. The question is how much, you know. Um, in my opinion, I'm a believer of the juking in the pocket and making that's great. That's what you want to see. The taking off and running when nothing's there, plays break down, great. But you got to slide. So I think that's where the line is. Run when nothing's there, but make sure you slide. Keep up the making people miss. Um, in the pocket. You gotta scale back the running people over. You gotta scale back the being reckless, just holding the football out there, and you gotta slide more and run out of bounds. I mean that's basically what it comes down to. Um, and I think over the last 3 weeks, the reason why Dart hasn't been as good too, on top of all the reasons I gave, is because he's thinking too much now, because it's gotten to his head from coaches, from media, that, hey, how do you feel about you're in the concussion thing? And what if you're injured all the time? And now he's second guessing, do I run? Do I pass? Do I wait for somebody to get open? And now he's getting sacked more because he's not playing with instinct. And also, to be fair, in the way that the current Giants offense is constructed, most people could argue that you probably need 4 to 5 seconds for anybody to get open because the receivers are so bad. And in the first, whatever it was, 6 games that he played, he was buying that time and then finding an open receiver because defenses can only keep up with a receiver for so long, even if they're bad. Where now it's seeming like defenses might have caught up to him a little bit. They kind of know how to keep him in the pocket a little better. And also the coaches are telling him don't run. So now he's kind of constrained in the pocket. He's not allowed to run. So basically he's just got to stand there and wait for a guy to get open, which obviously is not happening within 2 to 3 seconds. And then he's getting sacked or he's got to throw the ball away or whatever. So, and again, is that a coaching thing? Is that play calling thing? Is that him losing his confidence? I don't know, and we won't know. Do I think they should draft Mendoza? No, okay, because Mendoza could come out with the number 1 pick and be worse. And we're already 1 year ahead now. We really want to go backwards. I know it might be attractive if we have a new GM and a new coach. Hey, get the quarterback and blah blah blah. But also Mendoza, he's on a good team. And how much of that, I don't know. I think you got a lot of holes that you got to fill on the Giants, okay? I think quarterback at this current point is not one of them. It might be a different discussion next year when Neighbors and Scadaboo are back, and if Dart looks like he's been looking the last 3 weeks, maybe that's a different discussion. But for now, you got to at least approach from the mindset of we have our quarterback. Now let's see how many picks we can acquire to get as many players as possible to help fill as many of these holes that we have on the roster and go into next year in the best position possible. So that's my thought. And just going back to the point about running and getting hurt and all that, you could look at somebody like Joe Burrow. He doesn't even run that much, and he's always hurt. So yeah, there is the possibility that you could tell Jackson Dart, stop running, you're going to get hurt, and he can get hurt anyway, just from the pocket. So then it would be like a lose-lose because you're taking away the game that helps him win, and he's getting hurt, kind of like a Joe Burrow. But I think the bigger reason for me why you need to help tweak his game is not so much the injuries, because again, football is football, you're going to get hurt. I mean, of course, do I wish this was like the era of Tom Brady and Eli Manning and Peyton Manning, where quarterbacks sat back there and picked defenses apart, and you didn't have to worry as much about the quarterback getting injured? Yes, but we're past that era. Players, quarterbacks are almost like another player. They're going to get injured. But my issue is that when Dart starts hitting 29, 30, 31 years old, if the reason he's had success is because of all this scrambling and running and hitting the defense, he's not going to be able to do that at those ages. And will he be able to, at that point, change his game to continue to be successful? I mean, we've seen it with Russell Wilson. It hasn't happened. We're kind of starting to see it with Lamar Jackson. He's not running, he's not as successful with it. So I don't know. But I do think it's a little overblown. And again, it's hard to evaluate anything on this team because we don't know if players are quitting. We don't know if, like, Kafka just doesn't care because he knows he's not getting a head coaching job. We don't know what it is. So you're really not going to get a fair evaluation. And to be honest, maybe with the way the NFL is, you never get a fair evaluation. And so at some point, you just have to use instincts. I don't know. But at this current point, I still believe in Dart. I still think he could be the future of the team. You just got to get the right coach in. And I've been on record saying I think it's Mike McCarthy. He's a safe choice. He's consistent. Yeah, he might not be flashy. Yeah, he might not, get us to a Super Bowl or whatever, but he could at least get the Giants back to respectability. And then we could take it from there. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Like I said, not much to talk about in the game. Oh, other than the new kicker for the Giants. Is that just Graham Gano under another name? Because he looked exactly like Graham Gano. Just younger. So I don't know if Graham Gano went through some kind of de-aging and then just changed his name. And then, but hey, he made all his kicks. I guess that's good. Giants, I don't even want to say Giants had some turnovers because they didn't. The receivers on the Vikings they take note of all the receivers on the Vikings because they'll be on the Giants next year because they can't catch passes either. But the Giants, they did force the fumble. for a touchdown, so that was good. But I mean, ultimately, can't really even talk about the games right now because they're not playing for nothing. They're not playing hard. You get an interim coach who doesn't care. So I mean, literally let Jackson Dart throw the ball 4 times in the first half. That's ridiculous. And he had 33 yards on 13 attempts. They're obviously trying to protect him, and that's I don't know if that's going to hinder his development long term, but it's not doing anything for him this season. So we'll see what happens. I still believe in Dart. I believe they should trade the first pick, get as many picks as possible, try as hard as you can to make this work. And if it doesn't after next year, don't make the same mistake with Daniel Jones and keep a guy around for 6 years thinking, oh, this year will be the year. That's it. Dart gets one more year. It doesn't have to be amazing, be MVP of the league, but you got to see some serious progression. We have to see what he did in the first 4 or 5 games he started, but even better than that as his progression for us to go, yeah, I think we got our guy. If we see more of what we've been seeing these last 3 games going into next year, then next year's draft might be a different story. But go play the Raiders. Hey, that's going to be a good one to watch. Well, that's going to be 2 teams trying to lose, so that's just going to be. I don't even. Both teams might just stand on the sidelines just for 60 minutes just to try to lose the game because they both want the number 1 pick. But so that's going to be disastrous. But I'm sure the Giants will find a way to lose, so we'll probably maintain the first pick. All right, we'll see you next week.